All right, so out of nowhere, Lunastra appears, and with her came, armor, weapons, and of course the temporal mantle, which is ridiculous. But yeah, let's get started. But yeah, as you can see, the temporal mantle is ridiculous. And I mean, I was just literally here mashing the attack button, not even attempting to dodge or counter, just to see kind of what the limits of the temporal mantle are. And I mean, it doesn't seem to have any limits. Yeah, any hit that would knock you back just sends you into this evading animation, which looks like something straight out of Monster Hunter Generations. It is pretty fun though, and I think it's a cool addition to the game. I mean, what I'm thinking though is at some point what's going to happen is the monsters will get so tough and so hard down the road that things like the Rocksteady mantle or the temporal mantle will begin to become almost required. Like monsters may start getting moves that, will literally one-shot you unless you have your mantle up. So that's just something to think about as far as the future of Monster Hunter goes. But we have the arc Tempered, on the horizon. And to be honest, I'm most excited for that because I started in Tri, so I don't have a ton of experience with Lunastra. I went back to Freedom Unite after Tri, but before 3U. So for the most part, this is all new to me. She's somewhat similar to Teostra, of course. But yeah, speaking more on the addition of Lunastra herself, I love the design. I remember the first time when you fight her in that arena match. That was really cool. Just seeing even right now where you can see all the little sparks and kind of her like blight. Maybe it's just the color of it, but it's so much more entrancing than Teostra's like sparks, which are just orange sparks, fire. But this seems so much more mystical. And with the flames everywhere, those flames on the ground, that reminds me so much of Chrono Trigger for some reason. I don't know why, but every time I see him I think of like Magus and Chrono Trigger, but maybe it's just me being weird. But anyway, as you can see, I actually had a little bit of trouble with her. This wasn't my first run, but it's definitely still like day one territory. She seems to want to run away a bit more than Teostra. I noticed that at like 3 points throughout this hunt. It took me, I think, 13 or 14 minutes to beat her with Lance. I've done it faster with bow. GS was a nightmare. I did not like fighting her with a greatsword at all. Lance was okay. I still need to focus more on her tail and her weak spot. I didn't realize when I was doing this where exactly her weakest point was. And then with bow, I've gotten my best time with bow, and I'm not even that experienced with it. It's just much easier to hit her weak points, I feel like. And she's not terribly difficult to like slide around. But I wanted to put up a Lance video just because it's also been a little bit since I played Lance, and Lance is still my favorite weapon overall. But I didn't use my peak performance set on this fight, and that's just because this it's the same thing when I fight Teostra. It can be a problem just because your life's constantly ticking down, and sure, I'll get that little chip damage back with each hit, but I feel like it's just on and off, on and off, on and off throughout the hunt. So this set is just a attack 4, guard 3, weakness exploit, standard Lance set, and I'm pretty sure in this hunt I forgot to bring wetfish fins. And because I've taken speed sharpening out of my sets, so I was having to do the whole like normal 4 strokes to sharpen, which was a pain and probably slowed things down a little bit. That, and of course Nerd Gigante coming in, he'll make an appearance later, and that's just a nightmare. Yeah, and speaking of nightmares, like when Kushala comes in, or God, any of those monsters they come in, it just gets so hectic. And I think part of it is that I'm not 100% used to her to begin with. So then the inclusion of like another Elder Dragon just makes things that much more uncertain. That's not to say it isn't exciting. Definitely seeing the Elder Dragon's turf wars while you're fighting, very cool. Makes the hunt super exciting. I mean, maybe not the best for like trying to do a time attack, but not everything has to be about that. It was just so cool seeing some of the Elder Dragons fight each other and size each other up. And speak of the devil, I think they're gonna get into a little turf war right here, right now. Yeah, and while they're fighting, we could talk a little bit about Teostra's armor. I'm not super impressed by the armor overall. There is the chest piece, I believe, the beta, that comes with 2 points of peak performance. That has my interest the most, obviously, because I run peak performance builds often. So I'm interested to see what possibilities that could open up. But I mean, the sets that I have are pretty well optimized. So, I mean, I'm going to use the set builder, of course. There may be something I'm just not thinking of that could kind of push them to the next step. I mean, maybe having the extra space to get like that third crit boost jewel in while still having guard 3 or, so I'm interested in her armor insofar as that one beta chest piece. But as far as armor goes, I'm really just still keeping my eyes on the horizon for the gamma sets, which, God, I really hope they look different. I hope it's just not like a name change and it just looks the same. Even if it's a small detail, I want something to set it apart visually. As far as my thoughts on her weapons go, I'm really just interested in the Xeno variants, mostly for Razor Sharp. I mean, I don't play ranged all that much. I've just been messing around with bow a little bit. But the Razor Sharp on something like Lance or Insect Glaive, I mean, we've already got Master's Touch sets out there, and I've built a couple myself. But I like the idea of just having Razor Sharp built in without being tied to the Xeno set. So I'm going to make a couple builds, a couple Xeno-infused Luna builds, so to speak. But man, I really wish Elementalist would work with Blast and things like status effects, because it's not an element. And so I feel like it's a little bit of a misnomer when the jewel's called Elementalist and it doesn't work when there's no element. So, I mean, somewhere in the game it's coding poison and blast and paralysis as element, but because it would probably, I mean, honestly, that would probably be too broken anyhow. But it's still just the naming convention still bugs me a little bit, because I think just that change would make the Luna weapons absolutely bonkers. But it is what it is. So, but yeah, I'm very curious to see what the community will do with her weapons, what new builds will come up, and potentially, I mean, if certain weapons could use something like those blast weapons. I mean, we've already seen ridiculous videos from like Team Darkside and others where they're just going crazy on like blast dual blades or blast sword and shield. So with Lunastra's emphasis on that, plus the Razor Sharp, I could see some more cool videos coming out from various YouTubers. And like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I wasn't 100% familiar with, exactly her weak spots or this or that. So my goal initially was just aim for the head, right? Head's always a good choice. If anything else, just to break the horns. Horns are usually a rare carve. But at some point I found like just attacking her back legs, I felt like you're doing less damage, of course, but she seems not to want to trip like a lot of the other monsters when you attack her head. Like most monsters, if you just beat on their head enough, even if you don't have a hammer or a blunt weapon, they still fall over, right? It kind of staggers them or trips them. But with her, it didn't seem to be doing that. And so I started trying to attack her limbs more, and especially if you get stuck behind her, kind of like what was just happening right there. She can sometimes get just in this loop where she keeps doing the tail swipe over and over, and that can buy you some time just to keep attacking her legs and trip her that way. but it just makes me think that someone somewhere at Capcom is definitely listening, because yeah, they've for sure messed with the trip values, stagger values, things like that, where you can stagger the monster from. I mean, if she's a sign of things to come, then Orochi, Kirin, Alatrion are going to be just crazy. I mean, so I think it's a cool change. It's definitely made the fight much more difficult, just because a lot of the monsters you're able to trip lock or stagger lock, or like Nurg is such a great example, because I mean, you can just start counting hits on his head spikes, on his arm spikes, and you can start timing that stuff out. But with Lunastra, at least so far, it looks like it's going to be a little bit more difficult to do that, because the easiest ways to trip her are spots that aren't weak spots. So, weakness exploit isn't going to be proccing, so to speak. You're not going to be getting that. So it may require slightly different builds, which I'm excited about. I mean, and I'm no master theory crafter by any means, but it's something fun to think about. But that's going to be about it. This hunt's going to be wrapped up here in just a moment. She dies here in a little bit. But overall, I think Lunastra's a pretty cool addition. Definitely, she looks amazing. Little particle effects in the fire, cool. The armor, meh. But the weapons are interesting as well. At least the Xeno variants. I'm definitely going to be at least crafting them for lance, charge blade, great sword, bow, just pretty much everything that I play, just to have, because you gotta catch them all. So sadly, I didn't really care for the Palico armor. I kind of like how my Palico looks right now with the samurai helmet and the Joe armor. And that's about going to wrap this up for me. I hope you guys have fun with Lunastra. Hope you also have gotten what you needed from Cool. I did end up getting the Glutton heavy bow gun, but I really wanted that Thunder bow. And of course, I still haven't gotten it. So I've probably given up at this point. But anyway, good luck. Happy hunting.